even though the movie isn't set to come out for another 3 years or so, here's what we know so far about Secret Wars. Starting off with reputable leaks, My Time to Shine Hello tweeted, "The TVA sends a team of multiversal Avengers who have been secretly recruited, led by Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, and Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool, to save the 616 Avengers and defeat the Kangs once and for all." This structure sounds similar to how the Avengers who survived Thanos' snap, the outgoing original team, and saving the dusted incoming new Avengers. Maguire previously reprised his Peter Parker with Andrew Garfield in Spider-Man No Way Home, and has been heavily rumored to return in Secret Wars. As for the villains, well, that's a little iffy with the whole Jonathan Majors stuff. King Dynasty will have the new Avengers as the leads, while Secret Wars will be mostly from the point of view and will focus on the heroes from other universes. Allegedly, the Secret Wars movies will serve as a send-off for the classic Fox X-Men before ushering in a new cast. Azazel, played by Jason Fleming in X-Men First Class, is set to return to the big screen for Deadpool and Wolverine, and then more movies. In X-Men First Class, this character has a minor role as a member of the mutant extremist group Hellfire Club. The group sought mutant supremacy and tried to recruit the X-Men to join them. A and his fellow members tried to help their leader, Sebastian Shaw, enact a nuclear war, but Shaw's plans were foiled and he was killed. Following the death of the leader, the former members of the Hellfire Club joined Eric Leshner, bad guy, to form the Brotherhood of Mutants. Speaking of other folks, we've got Kelly Hu. She played Lady Deathstrike in X2, X-Men United, but it seems like somebody else is going to take on the role in the new Deadpool movie and the MCU, which can maybe stick around for more movies. Maybe this was a scheduling conflict, maybe this was a dispute, maybe there was something else entirely. Kelly has stated in the past that she'd love to return the role. Speaking of official returns, Daphne Keane will be back as X-23. Real name Laura, she appeared in the critically acclaimed Logan, once thought of as Hugh Jackman's final Wolverine movie, before he was like, I'll do Deadpool and Wolverine. As a clone of Wolverine, X-23's power set mirrors Wolverines, with retractable claws, the healing. Tyler Mane's going to return as Sabretooth instead of fan favorite Liev Schreiber, who played the character in Wolverine. Now, Schreiber has long wanted to return as Victor Creed, even discussing a return in Logan, but was cut during the script phase. Aaron Stanford has talked openly about how super excited he is to return as Pyro. He debuted in X-Men United and reprised the role in The Last Stand. He's now back after an 18-year break, super happy to be in Deadpool and Wolverine and possibly more movies. Sir Patrick Stewart and Sir Ian McKellen have also been rumored to appear in more MCU movies. They first appeared way back in the first X-Men movie, and ever since they've been a staple in the X-Men franchise. In an interview with Entertainment Tonight, Patrick Stewart said, "I can't say what Charles's future might possibly hold, but looks like these guys aren't retiring anytime yet." Stewart has already appeared in the MCU. Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. Also in the same interview that we just mentioned, Stewart revealed that these guys are far from retirement. They were like, we want to come back, we want to do more. So if Secret War is a way to tie all this up, what could be next? If we've got all these folks coming back, and that's their send-off, what do we got now? Well, there's maybe, let's see, what characters? Firestar. She wasn't in any of the Fox X-Men movies, and her most memorable appearance to date was in the animated 80s cartoon Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends before she was written into the comics. But I think this anonymity is exactly what a new X-Men movie reboot could use. Firestar can act as a young mutant who acts as the vessel for new and unfamiliar audiences to first immerse into this world with Professor Xavier's school. In the first X-Men movie, the role of the new and bewildered student was Rogue, also kind of Wolverine. Therefore, a small public incident involving her fire-based powers could bring Firestar into the X-Men fold and reintroduce this new team into the MCU. Other characters? Well, poor Gambit didn't really get much of a fair shake in the Fox franchise. The mutant first appeared in a small role in the very underwhelming X-Men Origins Wolverine, and an announcement about a solo Gambit movie starring Channing Tatum was made in 2016, but sadly, this movie never made it into the production stage before the merger, and it was cancelled. Now that Marvel is starting with a blank slate again, it only seems fair to give Gambit a chance to shine. He could even be played by Channing Tatum in this continuity, and we could use some ideas from what could have been. Also, Gambit brings a side of gray morality to the team. As an ex-thief, he can show how the X-Men are the force for good for mutant kind in the MCU. My personal bias is showing, but I think Pixie or Megan Gwen would be a really fun fit into the new X-Men movies. She's adorable, she's pink, we have a whole struggle with her powers that we can work with for storylines, and just think of the merchandising opportunities. Pixie has been described as one of Marvel's most notable and powerful female heroes, and she's teamed up with X-23 before, so that's an easy way in. So Deadpool and Wolverine end up in the new universe at the end of Deadpool 3. So Jackman is definitely here to stay until at least the very end of Secret Wars, which makes sense about this next arc being used as a way to send off the Fox leftovers, if you will. Nothing against them, but the MCU needs a major dose of adrenaline and freshness that people want, and they're kind of struggling in that department. So on top of Tobey's Spider-Man being the chosen one for the group of misfit soups, allegedly Tom Holland's Spider-Man is the chosen one from Universe 616. So if that sounds confusing, allow me to explain. It sounds like at some point between the Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, Earth 616 as we know it is going to be destroyed. Are we maybe getting She-Hulk? So speaking on Deadline's Hero Nation podcast, head writer for She-Hulk Attorney at Law, Jessica Gao, addressed, are we going to maybe get Jennifer Walters? So the interviewer first referred to a scene from She-Hulk that takes place outside the prison, and a reporter can be overheard saying, "Heard she's been rejected from the Avengers." So when asked if She-Hulk would maybe be appearing in future movies, Gao revealed she would be shocked if Walters didn't make the cut. She's like, "I would be shocked if they didn't start putting her in the movies, especially the group team-up movies." Mark Ruffalo, the Hulk, previously addressed She-Hulk's Avengers future as he confirmed, "There's not going to be another Avengers without her." The TVA's authority and access across the multiverse make all of this really exciting. The possibilities are endless as it is, but with the TVA interfering, everything can go beyond anybody's wildest imaginations. Granted, we should take that with a grain of salt. This means if you haven't been following up with all the recent Marvel movies, it might be worth doing a rewatch ASAP. Loki fans have been on the TVA train for a while now. One of the people most responsible for bringing that bureaucratic entity into the MCU? Producer Kevin Wright. He was the mastermind behind the Loki series on Disney Plus and pushed for the TVA to be a big part of Loki's character for the show. In a previous interview with Variety, Wright explained how long they've worked on Loki. It was a labor of love, but for him, it was super fun to see how much the TVA plays into the rest of the MCU. So as the multiverse saga hurtles forward, he's hoping that more of the organization gets picked up and expanded by other creators. To reference the new Deadpool movie once again, because that's going to have effects on Secret Wars, there's a picture of Deadpool without his costume and a long list of attributes, skills, and backstory for the characters. Loki fans will obviously recognize the folders with important information from season 2 of Loki. So in addition of these details, social media posts also highlight a new poster that says, "Stay vigilant. Are there variants among you?" Clearly, one branch of the TVA did not get the memo from the season finale of Loki's latest appearance. After discovering that the bureaucratic society was set up as a failsafe, Tom Hiddleston's trickster decided to even the odds by allowing the multiverse to exist at the cost of his own freedom. So will Deadpool have some way to bring Loki back? Only time will tell. In his latest newsletter, Jeff Snyder says that while the Doctor Doom casting for the Fantastic Four reboot has yet to happen, he heard that Robert Downey Jr. might be coming back to the MCU timeline as a very famous nemesis. Snyder says he heard that the Iron Man star might be playing a variant version of Stark who ends up becoming Doctor Doom in his world. The idea that the MCU report seems to be loosely based on is Marvel's infamous Iron Man comic run, where Victor Von Doom served as Iron Man. Created by Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maleev, it explores Doctor Doom as a hero, carrying Tony's hero title. There are certainly a number of directions the MCU could go with this concept, and having Robert Downey Jr. as part of that equation would be kind of crucial for a lot of reasons. Given how big of an impact the actor had on the MCU by the time of Endgame, having him return but giving him a very different arc and character to play would avoid decreasing the effect of his initial send-off. Marvel Studios could always approach the idea of Tony as Doctor Doom either by having him be a morally gray hero or a traditional villain. Having him as an antagonist would also allow for some emotional heartstrings to be pulled for the Earth 616 heroes, as it would have to battle someone who in their timeline was an ally.
Jonathan Majors as Kang is out, but then just who or what is in when it comes to Avengers 5? While we don't know for sure what the plans are with Jonathan Majors no longer as a part of the MCU, it seems likely that Marvel will need to fully pivot with this project. After all, Avengers 5 was originally titled as Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, but what would that be without Kang? Well, they could simply recast Kang. Some have theorized a more creative or more bold solution will likely come about. Just fully pivot. Drop the Kang storyline and do something entirely different. Honestly, I feel like this could be the shakeup that we actually kinda need, even though I do like Kang, and in terms of the story and character, I did like what they were building with him in the MCU. But if we aren't going to have Kang as our main focus / main antagonist of Avengers 5, what will we have? What's left? Or what potentially could replace this mainline plot? The MCU has some time to still figure that out, and as for us, we all have our theories. Some think Doctor Doom might take Kang's place, and it's that simple. Others have been suggesting that an entirely different team or storyline could be used as the focus for this film. Some have even said these stories and teams have actually already had their seeds planted in recent Marvel Cinematic projects. With whatever is coming up next in Deadpool and Wolverine, I think a lot of people are expecting that the whole status quo at Marvel is likely going to change. Why do we think this? Because it seems as though we might be hitting the reset button in Deadpool 3, or at least doing, let's say, a soft reset and reconfiguration of our focuses and priorities in the MCU. The Fox X-Men movies will once again be referenced, but this time it will be in MCU canon, which is pretty crazy. What does this mean? Well, what some are thinking, it could mean that we are going to see a changing of the guards. Out with the old, in with the new, when it comes to X-Men at least. The fact that Secret Wars also might play a role here could mean that we'll see a complete restructuring of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That is what happened anyways when Secret Wars happened in 2015, in the comics at least. We got a whole new world out of it, and then afterwards a refresh somewhat on the multiverse, the mainline multiverse, after it was rebuilt by the Fantastic Four, with the project to do so spearheaded by Reed Richards and Molecule Man. There have just simply been too many references to this next one for it to not make some kind of appearance in the next Avengers film. I actually think instead of Avengers 5, we could get a completely new team known as the Young Avengers. So there will be no Avengers Kang Dynasty, it'll just be Young Avengers. The Young Avengers are a group of teenage and young adult heroes in the comics who are just coming into their own when they assemble. They are fans of the Avengers who band together to create their own superhero group. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we've already seen some of them appear, including Kate Bishop as Hawkeye, Eli Bradley, who goes on to become Patriot, Billy, the son of Wanda Maximoff, aka Scarlet Witch, who in the comics is known as the hero Wiccan, Cassie Lang, who becomes known as the hero Stature, and America Chavez. We've also been introduced to new heroes who could find a place on this team based on their experience level and their age range. Number 10. Blue Marvel. While Blue Marvel was not part of the main Avengers team, he was a member of Luke Cage's Mighty Avengers, which gets assembled in the second volume of Mighty Avengers, which began its series run in 2013. The Mighty Avengers is an important team in Marvel history, and were extremely important as they were made up of Earth's mightiest heroes on Earth, while the main Avengers, also made up of some of Earth's mightiest heroes, were off-world at the time during the Infinity event. At least that's what this team of Mighty Avengers was about. There was a previous Mighty Avengers team, but we're talking about Volume 2, baby! Blue Marvel himself is one of the most powerful heroes around when it comes to the Marvel Universe. He is Adam Brashear, whose powers are based in antimatter energy, making him a tough hero to beat and putting him in league with some of Marvel's greatest and most powerful titans. Not only that, but Adam Brashear is also a genius who is invulnerable and almost immortal, with his aging greatly slowed by his powers, meaning he is much older than he looks. Blue Marvel was also a member of the retcon first Mighty Avengers team, which existed in the 1970s, as we learned in their first appearance in issue number 12 of the 2013 Mighty Avengers. Like I said, they existed in the past, but we introduced them in the future, because in the past they didn't actually exist. That's okay. They should have existed. Mighty Avengers is awesome. And friends, if you are loving this list as much as I am loving presenting it to you, and you want more Black History Month lists, which I would love to do for you to be honest, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9. Spider-Man. Miles actually got to join the Avengers shortly after making his way to Earth 616, following the rebuilding of the universe after Secret Wars. He and his family, including his formerly dead uncle Aaron Davis, aka Prowler, were given a new start on the 616 Earth after Miles showed kindness to Molecule Man by giving him a cheeseburger he was carrying around in his suit when Molecule Man was hungry back on God Emperor Doom's Battleworld. Miles Morales is also known as Spider-Man and was invited to join the all-new, all-different Avengers, although in the comics they were really just known as the Avengers. From there, he ended up splintering off with a few of his Avengers teammates and making their own superhero group known as the Champions, which was pretty much made up of young heroes. The Champions was made up of Miles Morales' Spider-Man, Kamala Khan's Miss Marvel, and Sam Alexander's Nova. At least to start. There have been more champions since then. Number 8. Dr. Voodoo. Dr. Voodoo, formerly known as Brother Voodoo, is Jericho Drumm. He became Sorcerer Supreme after Dr. Stephen Strange was deemed unworthy and lost the title. Similar, but different in regards to how Strange lost the title in the MCU, with Wong becoming the new Sorcerer Supreme instead. Dr. Voodoo currently is affiliated with Strange Academy and Midnight Suns, but has also been affiliated with actually a ton of Avengers teams in his recent past. He's been a part of the main Avengers team, joining them in New Avengers and Uncanny Avengers when he was part of the Unity Division Squad, and he's also been on the Mighty Avengers team as well. Dr. Voodoo is an exceptionally gifted magic user who has a slew of powers due to his mystical training and origins. Honestly, we don't hype him up enough on this channel, so I'm happy to have given him a moment in the spotlight on this list. He deserves it. Dr. Voodoo is awesome. We should do a Dr. Voodoo list. That's what I think. Number 7. Blade. Blade is a super important hero who made his first appearance in Tomb of Dracula issue number 10 back in 1973. This is back when Marvel was into monster and horror comics, by the way. A fun time in their history. A lot of people seem to forget that Blade is actually a Marvel superhero due to his more supernatural and spooky origins, and also considering just how mature and somewhat violent his stories and overall character can be portrayed. Blade is Eric Brooks, part vampire, part human, a hybrid known as Dampier. He is a vampire hunter who seeks to get revenge for the death of his mother, as well as for being turned into a Dampier, which also happened as a result of his mother's death. Blade is currently a member of the Avengers and is pretty much the hero who proved that superhero movies could be a profitable thing. The first Blade film was released in 1994 and paved the way for following successful films such as Spawn and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man franchise. Blade also simultaneously created the possibility for future superhero film franchises, as the 1994 film also got 2 sequels, becoming one of the first superhero cinematic franchises. Number 6. Storm. Storm might be more well known for her affiliation with the X-Men, but like her fellow mutants and fellow X-Men team members Wolverine and Rogue, she has also at times been called on to serve on other teams such as the Avengers. She ended up joining Brian Michael Bendis' Avengers in issue number 19 of the 2010 series. Storm is recruited by Captain America at the recommendation of Black Panther. You see, Steve wanted to recruit T'Challa, but Black Panther basically said he was too preoccupied and he wasn't really in a good place to be on the active Avengers team currently. While Steve insisted that they needed more friendly faces on the team, Black Panther offered that what he really needed was more firepower. And for that reason, Black Panther suggested his wife at the time, Storm, should be considered. Storm was called upon and offered membership by Cap and ultimately decided to accept, although she believed she was recommended in part so that Black Panther could keep her close to him in New York, where he was currently operating himself, helping to fill in for Daredevil, and of course where Avengers Mansion is located. It's good to keep your partner close to you though, so I respect it. Also, he was right, Storm is definitely firepower, so good recommendation, I think. Number 5. War Machine. War Machine is known for being a close friend of Iron Man, aka Tony Stark. He's been on the Avengers as well as a slew of other teams including the Secret Avengers, twice in fact, and the West Coast Avengers. James Rhodes, aka Rhodey, also has taken up the mantle of Iron Man before, filling in for Tony when he was struggling with his alcoholism. James took up the mantle of Iron Man in issue 170 of the original Iron Man series back in the 80s. In fact, Rhodey only stopped being Iron Man really because Tony was kind of forced to come back. Rhodey, you see, suffered from severe migraines after donning the suit, which also translated to him becoming paranoid, frantic, and at times reckless. He also ended up having a traumatic experience inside the Iron Man suit and almost died. But despite this, years later when called upon after Tony appeared to have died, Rhodey ultimately agreed to carry on the Iron Man legacy for his friend, as Stark had wished him to do, once more donning an Iron Man suit known as the War Machine armor. He was furious when he learned though that Tony wasn't actually dead, decided to cut ties with him, at least for that time, but keeping the armor, and ended up becoming the hero known as War Machine. Number 4. Falcon. Formerly known as Captain America, and I think now soon to be known or currently known again as Captain America, is Sam Wilson, who is also known by the mantle of Falcon. Falcon is a good friend of Captain America, Steve Rogers, and has worked with him throughout the years. Not only has he been a member of the Avengers, but he also took over Rogers' place as Captain America during his time with the all-new, all-different Avengers team. Wilson in the MCU was also given the mantle of Captain America, and after trying to resist taking up that mantle mantle, ultimately ended up embracing it in the Disney Plus streaming series Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I can't wait to see him in his own movie as Captain America. It's gonna be so awesome. Number 3, Spectrum. Monica Rambeau is probably one of the most powerful superheroes to have ever been on the Avengers team. She also for a short time actually led the team herself, and she was actually the first woman to take up the Captain Marvel mantle. While many now associate the mantle with Monica's friend and colleague Carol Danvers, formerly known as Miss Marvel, Monica was actually the first to take up the name after the original Captain Marvel, Kree hero Mar-Vell. Unfortunately, Monica was manipulated into giving up her leadership of the Avengers shortly after being given that role, and she was also later encouraged to give up the Captain Marvel mantle by Mar-Vell's genetic offspring, Janice Vell, who formerly went by the name Legacy. In other words, Monica Rambeau has been I feel like sidelined a lot. She doesn't deserve that. She's so powerful. While Monica has had a ton of codenames over the years, when it comes to her superhero name, Spectrum has seemed to stick relatively well and pretty much sums up her powers as well, which allows her to change into, channel, and utilize various different energy types across the spectrum, making her a hard hero to defeat. Number 2, Luke Cage. Luke Cage is known for being one of the first black superheroes over at Marvel Comics, although he was not the first. He is often affiliated with Heroes for Hire, the Defenders, and the Avengers. Luke Cage was originally known simply by his name, Luke Cage, when he first appeared in Heroes for Hire issue number 1 in 1972, although we've also known him as Power Man before. And his original legal name was actually Carl Lucas. He had it changed. He got his powers after being experimented on in Seagate Prison. These powers hardened his skin to the point that it was basically impenetrable, making Luke super durable. While Luke had a history of causing trouble in his youth, he was not actually guilty of the crimes that he was convicted with during his time in prison. He was set up. He was framed by his former friend and criminal Willis Stryker, despite currently attempting to live on the straight and narrow. Luke would go on to join the Avengers team during the original New Avengers series, offered membership by Captain America. He would also go on to lead his own team of Mighty Avengers during the Infinity event, and like I said, you can check that out in Volume 2 of Mighty Avengers. Number 1, Black Panther. Black Panther is a really important black superhero who is a member of the Avengers. Currently, he's actually the leader of the Avengers team. He also was the first black superhero at Marvel Comics, appearing in Fantastic Four issue number 52 in 1966 and joining the Avengers team a few years later in 1968. Black Panther has not just become an icon in the comic book community, but has also become a symbol the world over, becoming a global icon overnight with the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe film Black Panther, where he was played by the late and great Chadwick Boseman, taken from us much too soon. T'Challa is not just an amazingly powerful hero because of his tech, his skill set, his wealth, and his resources, but also because of his brilliant mind, being one of the biggest brains of the Marvel Universe. In fact, he was originally offered a spot on the secret big brain Marvel team, the Illuminati, because of his great mind, but he turned down the offer of membership because he disagreed with the ideologies of that team. Although later he would join the Illuminati, but initially he was like, nah, not joining this, you guys are crazy. Don't worry, later he was like, alright, I'm kinda allied with you now, we're in sync, now I'll join.
And in 10, Ultron 1320. Ultron 1320 comes to us from Earth 14622 and What If Age of Ultron number 1, an Earth where thanks to Wasp dying, Ultron is able to take over the world faster. Ultron was created to be the ultimate AI by Hank Pym to help the Avengers utilize their function better as a team. But with the untimely death of Pym's wife, Pym went on to create a more brutal version of Ultron, which was to replace the Avengers, which makes him technically the son of Hank Pym. So he's viable for this list, okay? But since he's a robot, I'm putting him at the top. Don't worry, that's why he's here. But with this, Ultron's sentience began to constantly evolve, and he started the eradication of the human race by taking out such threats as the Avengers and the Defenders while he left Pym alive to just watch everyone suffer. Ultron and his army of Ultron Sentinels then moved to Kola, Russia, so he could bore himself into the planet's core to create the ultimate version of himself, Ultron 1320. Ultron then had his minions batter and beat Pym unconscious until he woke up to find himself turned into Ultron 1321. This version also invaded other worlds, claiming Earth 62412, 23223, and 81223, but before being stopped on Earth 45162. That's a lot of numbers. And at 9, Wiccan. Billy Kaplan, also known by his superhero aliases Asgardian and Wiccan, is a superpowered warlock and the reincarnated son of the Scarlet Witch. He has spent time on numerous superhero teams including the Young Avengers and the New Avengers, and after Wiccan's powers overloaded during a battle with the Sons of the Serpent, the Avengers decided to keep him under observation. Hulkling and the other Young Avengers broke Wiccan out of holding and began to search for the Scarlet Witch. Accompanied by Magneto and Quicksilver, the team traveled to Transia and then to Latveria before discovering a depowered and amnesiac Wanda engaged to Doctor Doom. The rediscovery of Wanda did not go unnoticed though, as the Avengers soon arrived on the scene. Iron Lad teleported the Young Avengers and Wanda into the time stream, and they all went into the past and met a reanimated Jack of Hearts who was about to explode. After that, Wanda remembered who she was, regained her powers, and returned herself, the Young Avengers, and Scott Lang to the present. She then finally confirmed that Billy and Tommy were indeed her reincarnated sons, a story that seemingly will be adapted into the MCU come Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. In at 8, Hulkling. Teddy was one of the first people in the Avengers failsafe program, compiled by the Vision to be used as a form of new team of superheroes in the event of the destruction or the disbandment of the Avengers. Iron Lad, a younger version of Kang the Conqueror, found Teddy using the Vision's failsafe program and requested his help in preventing his future self from returning to the future. Teddy joined the Young Avengers and adopted the superhero identity of the Hulkling, despite actually being the son of Captain Marvel. He only took on the Hulkling identity to help keep in the theme of the Young Avengers being new versions of the original Avengers, using his powers to change his skin color to green. As well as these shape-shifting abilities comes the powers of flight, a healing factor, as well as superhuman stamina, durability, and strength. He also gains the ability of matter substitution when he and his husband Wiccan end up using their wedding rings together, which is kind of adorable, and goals. And at 7, Scotty Summers. Hailing from Earth 1298, Scotty is Alex Summers and Madeline Pryor's son. Scotty, as he came to be known, was born to the mutant superhero Havoc and his then girlfriend Madeline. Sometime after his birth, his mom and dad got married and they moved in with the reformed X-Factor. As a child, he showed no signs of exceptional power and enjoyed a normal life until the Inferno event. During Inferno, he was captured by a couple demons who planned to use him as a sacrifice to open up the world to the malevolent Goblin Force. Alone and afraid, he was rescued by his mother Madeline, who brokered a deal with the demons in exchange for her son's life. He returned home with her, and the demons and the nightmare it seemed were over. But when Havoc of Earth 616 wound up in his counterpart in the Mutant X's reality's dead body, Scott immediately recognized that this Havoc was not truly his father. This was the first hint at the scope of young Scotty's power. When his mother was possessed by the Goblin Queen, Scotty was also taken by his father and their nanny, the ninja assassin Elektra. The three became like a family themselves, and Scotty even bonded with his new father. Eventually, Scotty during the battle was captured along with Havoc by the evil entity, but he knew that he was in the right place at the right time, and incidentally knew exactly what to do to end the fight. With a simple touch, he managed to defeat the Goblin Queen, who was possessing his mother at the time. But yeah, it's pretty overpowered. I guess you could say that Scotty doesn't know about his powers. And at 6, Vision. The MCU Vision is in essence the son of Tony Stark, Bruce Banner, Ultron, and Thor, which is honestly a really weird combination. Or if you want to get more technical, I guess Thor and Ultron are closer to his parents, with like Tony and Bruce basically being his grandparents, aside from the whole using Jarvis to make Vision thing. So I guess technically, by that logic, Tony is also Vision's father and grandfather. What? Either way, powered by an advanced AI and the Mind Stone, Vision is probably one of the most powerful Avengers until he was killed in Infinity War at the hands of Wanda and then Thanos, which was a stupid idea as we saw thanks to Ultron Z's with Thanos in the What If series on Disney+, where using the Mind Stone, Ultron just literally tore Thanos in half, which is probably what Vision could have done, resulting in one of the most frustrating moments of the entire MCU to me. But oh well, what are you gonna do? But yeah, I think that with the Mind Stone, he is certainly powerful, but his reluctance to use it to kill Thanos puts him higher on the list, as well as, you know, the whole being mostly dead thing. Halfway through in at number 5, Valeria Richards. Valeria Richards is the second son of Dr. Reed Richards, aka Mr. Fantastic, and Susan Richards, aka the Invisible Woman, who did serve as Avengers for a couple missions. Due to her parents being exposed to cosmic radiation and being conceived in the negative zone, it caused her birth to be traumatic. But thanks to her uncle, Dr. Doom, he saved her life using a combination of science and magic. She was born a standard human and developed a genius-level intellect like her father. But as an unborn infant, when she was approaching term, she began to emit bursts of deadly radiation radiation that threatened both her and her mother. Despite bringing in fellow scientists and radiation experts like Bruce Banner, Michael Morbius, and Otto Octavius, Reed Richards was unable to save his daughter, who appeared to be stillborn. Appearances can be deceiving though. Franklin Richards, the couple's first child, felt a deep loss over his sister because, you know, he didn't have a sister anymore. Unconsciously though, he secretly used his psionic powers to transport this daughter to an alternate reality. After Franklin's cosmic powers were depleted during a battle to save all reality, Valeria reverted to an unborn child within Sue's womb. So all of a sudden, she was pregnant with Valeria again. Yeah, Sue then came to term, but again her life was threatened by bursts of radiation from the child. However, this time Johnny Storm enlisted the aid of Dr. Doom, who was able to save her, but not without a price. And at 4, Modi Thorson. In the Ultimate Universe of Earth 1610, when Thor traveled to Valhalla to retrieve the soul of Valkyrie, Hela appeared and told him if he managed to defeat her army that she would revive Valkyrie, but for a price. Thor remained in Valhalla once Valkyrie was revived, but when he requested to be sent back to Earth, Hela once again agreed, but for a price. This time though, it was a child. Thor agreed. Well, meanwhile on Earth, Amora showed Valkyrie a vision of Thor and Hela making love. Valkyrie didn't realize that he had to do it though, to get back to Earth, but whatever. Thor, after the deed, asked to be sent back to Earth, but Hela requested another price. In a rage, Thor drew his sword and was going to kill Hela before seeing that she was already pregnant. The child, named Modi, eventually joined with the Children of Tomorrow, and when the Children of Tomorrow invaded Asgard, Thor locked Modi in a room without doors to keep him safe, and gave him Mjolnir so that when he was worthy, he would have a way out. Weeks later, but in that room it was years, and after the children had destroyed Washington, an adult Modi broke free of the room, with Mjolnir in his hand. Disguised as the mysterious Mr. Moraz, Modi attempted to usher in another American Civil War by supporting various warring factions in America in order to destroy the country and create a new Asgard from its ashes. He eventually was killed by Thor after using the Mind Stone to control Thor's mind and siding with Hydra, so yeah, not a good kid overall, but still pretty damn powerful. In at 3, Red She-Hulk. A mysterious female version of Red Hulk first appeared when the Red Hulk had gathered a team of mercenaries to hunt down Domino. After this group, called Code Red, not sponsored by Mountain Dew, found Domino, Wolverine slashed his claws across Red Hulk's face, blinding him until his healing factor restored his eyesight. Wolverine was about to deliver the killing blow to Red Hulk when Red She-Hulk appeared, blindsiding him. Red She-Hulk protected Red Hulk long enough in challenging Wolverine. However, just as Red Hulk began to trust Red She-Hulk, she double-crossed him and plunged Elektra's stolen Psy into his neck. Code Red were gathered in the sewers and awaited orders from Samson. Their encounter ended with Red She-Hulk kicking Red Hulk off the Empire State Building. She was then captured by Hank Pym, but her identity was finally revealed when she was stabbed with a sword by Scar and reverted to her human form, revealing her to be Betty, Thaddeus Ross, aka Red Hulk's daughter. And Red She-Hulk has gone toe-to-toe with Hulk in a battle that resulted in both of them dying before being brought back by a wish that Hulk had made earlier. So yeah, pretty powerful. See, I know if someone has tussled with the Hulk to put him higher on this list now since y'all can't let go. But ultimately, and at number 2, Scar. Scar was the progeny of Hulk and Sierra the Old Strong. After Sierra's death, I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong, a cocoon containing Scar fell into the Lake of Fire. After a period of time, Scar emerged from this cocoon, appearing to be the age of a human boy. A year later, he appeared to have grown into a young adult, and spent time in the swamps with Old Sam, who attempted to raise, teach, and guide him after he discovered him shortly after the Shadow People burned tattoos into his skin. It took Old Sam months to get him to wear a loincloth and speak, although to be fair, it would have also taken him a few months to get me to wear a loincloth. As the son of the Hulk though, Scar presumably possesses the capacity for vast, if not limitless levels of physical strength among other capabilities, ones which are either fueled by intense anger like his father or via channeling the old power. Once having absorbed 100 trillion tons of kinetic energy from a city to fight the Hulk, he sent Juggernaut flying into space with ease, punching beings miles away, just a lot. And not only that, but thanks to his mother, Scar also possesses the powers of the Shadow People, known as the Old Power, which allows him to connect to and manipulate the planet's energies, basically giving him lava and earthbending skills. Finally, in at number 1, Franklin Richards. Franklin Richards is the son of Reed and Sue Richards of the world-renowned Fantastic Four, who, like I said, were at one point working alongside the Avengers, and who were deemed Avengers for a couple missions, so I'm counting it. Basically, the frickin' Celestials have deemed this kid to be beyond Omega level on the scale of mutant-based powers, so yeah. A future version of Franklin came back to our present and managed to bend Galactus to his will, making Galactus Franklin's herald, which I think speaks for itself. This kid is able to tear the universe apart with a single thought, probably making him the scariest damn toddler on the face of this planet. And that's coming from someone who already thinks toddlers are scary, okay? You should have seen that one kid who tried to stab me with safety scissors. It was certainly an interesting Tuesday afternoon. And in the book History of the Marvel Universe, Franklin Richards is revealed to apparently survive the end of his universe and pass on to the next one, like Galactus did, which is freaking insane.
Number 10. Kang Evolution. Kang. The future seems uncertain for this major Avengers villain in the MCU, but I have a theory for what might happen should we want to keep the character as part of the narrative. However, when it comes to Kang, he has worn many faces across time, and it is possible that Kang could actually be, well, pretty much anyone, and that time could have changed his appearance. While we've seemingly established that variants basically have to look exactly like themselves, this doesn't always have to be the case. We could redefine sort of that rule. We could question that and just re-establish it so that it isn't so. This would open us up to keeping the Kang angle while potentially recasting if need be and having it all make sense. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to click that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any good nerdy content. Number 9. New Avengers. The old Avengers are out and the new Avengers may be in. I think we'll see a completely new lineup of a team of recently introduced characters. In the comics, this team, which was editorially known as the New Avengers but in canon just went by the name Avengers, was made up of Luke Cage, Ronan, Bucky Barnes, Carol Danvers, Mockingbird, Spider-Man, Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, and Wolverine. In the MCU, if we were to have our own team of New Avengers, I'd put forward a roster that featured Sorcerer Supreme Wong, Shang-Chi, Spider-Man, Captain Marvel, Sam Wilson's Captain America, White Vision, Moon Knight, and She-Hulk. Kind of a weird team, to be honest, but also definitely an interesting one. Number 8. Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Four were being written about only last month as if the project was pretty much cast. However, having gone back to take another look at some of those articles, it seems as though we aren't as close to having the main team cast as was first suspected. Honestly, I was skeptical when people started talking about the casting as though it was done. I was like, I feel like we're way far out, but if you say so. However, rumors have still been flying about in regards to Pedro Pascal being nearly cast as Reed Richards, depending on sort of his shooting schedule with other projects, and some other performers being nearly settled on in terms of other members of the first family. I wouldn't be surprised if we get at least a reference to them, if not a cameo of them even, in Avengers 5, maybe in the post-credits. Keep your eyes peeled for Easter eggs when we get there is all I'm gonna say, because I feel like Avengers 5 is gonna have lots of references to the Fantastic Four. Number 7. X-Men collide with the main continuity. For those who missed it, the X-Men were teased at during the post-credits scene of the Marvels. Here we saw Monica Rambeau after she was trapped in an alternate universe recovered by a variant seemingly of her mom, who is also a variant of Captain Marvel, it would seem, as she appears to be the hero binary, one of Captain Marvel's other mantles she has worn in the comics. For those that don't know, Carol, despite not being a mutant, was actually once a super close ally to the X-Men in the comics, even fighting alongside them for quite a while. Beast's Hank McCoy was also there to take and analyze Monica's readings, and it seems that she had been found and taken in by the X-Men in this alternate world. Well, what does this mean? Considering that Secret Wars is on the agenda and incursions were hinted at in Multiverse of Madness, I'm hoping the X-Men will come to the main continuity via their world colliding with the main MCU continuity. That's what makes the most sense given the information I have so far, but either way, it seems that Marvel wants to let us know that yes, the X-Men will be coming soon. Just how soon, we'll have to wait and see. But hopefully in Avengers 5, that would be really awesome. Number 6. White Vision joins the team. White Vision seems to be like a loose end that everyone at Marvel and Disney forgot existed, but I'm hoping that the MCU picks up this loose thread and does something with it soon. White Vision could be added to an Avengers team, maybe even the West Coast Avengers could show up, or perhaps he could be a sub-boss who is converted back into being good. I know that it's likely if we do see him, he'll be Avengers adjacent in some way, since that's where he originally sort of started out as regular Vision, or he might show up in Armor Wars. Either way, I'm hopeful that he will return and not just be another missing piece of this honestly mess of an MCU puzzle. Number 5. Scarlet Witch will return. Scarlet Witch is one of my favorite characters in the comics and the MCU. I love her as both a hero and a villain personally. Just Wanda can do no wrong in my mind, but I was a little sad to see her go in Multiverse of Madness, especially when, based on everything that happened in WandaVision, you would think that Wanda would not have behaved quite so ruthlessly as she did in that movie. I mean, I know she wanted her children back at basically any cost, but to take them from their mother, which was basically a variant of her, seems a little out of character. I know the Darkhold was royally messing with her, which is how we justify that, but it felt like we were taking somewhat of a step backward when it came to her development as a character with everything we did in WandaVision. I was willing to let it slide because I love an evil Wanda, and honestly overall I did enjoy the movie, but at the same time it would be sad to me if this was actually the end of her story. While Elizabeth Olsen has said she's pretty much done with superhero movies for now, I'm honestly a little skeptical. I think if offered an acting challenge like she had with WandaVision, she might return to give the character a hopefully more heroic send-off. Or it might be possible if the X-Men do show up that both Wanda and Pietro could return via variants of themselves who are back to being mutants and are aligned with the Brotherhood like in the classic X-Men days. It sounds wild, but it would be delightful if something like that happened, at least for me. And that way, if Elizabeth Olsen wasn't interested, they could always potentially recast, because this version would be a variant, so it doesn't have to be the same actor. Number 4. Young Avengers. The Young Avengers is a team I have been hoping to see for quite some time in the MCU. It feels like we've been building to this since the days of WandaVision, which honestly feels like it was forever ago, but really only came out nearly 3 years ago. Though really 3 years in cinematic time really does feel like forever, doesn't it? Ever since I saw Billy and Tommy appear as Wanda's reality warp created children, I was wondering, will we get the Young Avengers, and if so, when? Since then, we've gotten a cameo of Eli Bradley in Disney Plus's streaming series Falcon and the Winter Soldier, as well as Kate Bishop being introduced in Hawkeye and America Chavez in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Additionally, we've also been introduced to 2 younger heroes as well, with Kamala Khan's Ms. Marvel appearing in her own show and The Marvels, and Black Widow's adopted younger sister Yelena Belova, known alternatively as the White Widow in the comics and the Black Widow in the MCU, although neither of them have been part of the Young Avengers team in the comics. Still, based on the fact that Ms. Marvel appears at the end of the Marvels to recruit Kate Bishop to her own younger team of heroes, it's likely that we'll either be getting Young Avengers or the Champions in the MCU at some point. And maybe Avengers 5 will be that point. Maybe they'll be the new Avengers, the Young Avengers, or the Champions if that's the name we go with. I think Young Avengers makes more sense even if it is more of a Champions team. Number 3. Mirrodin. Who is Mirrodin? Well, we don't really know, but what we do know is he or she or they is a new major villain in Avengers comics. Nothing much has been established about them, but what we know is they were powerful enough to almost kill Kang off in the Timeless series. Mirrodin wears a mask, so it seems likely to me that they will be revealed as someone we already know from the comics. Many of the signs from the comics so far seem to suggest that this might be Merlin in disguise. An alternate version of the name Mirrodin, which is spelt a little bit differently, is one that Merlin has used before, and this villain seems to have an obsession with chess games, which is also something that we know about Merlin, seeing him fight against his enemies as such, both literally and metaphorically, which is also something Merlin has just really been known to do. So there are quite a few similarities here in the comics, not to mention that Merlin is often known to be a fan of disguises. The question is, could Mirrodin be a replacement for Kang in the MCU, or could they somehow also be involved in that story, or at least the original story that we had for Avengers 5? I don't know. Sometimes the comics reflects the MCU or vice versa, so we'd have to wait and see. Number 2. Doctor Doom. What could happen if Kang was actually ditched instead in the MCU? If we abandon the entire plot, what are we left with? Some have theorized that instead we could see an even more iconic villain introduced in Kang's place. We're talking about Doctor Doom. Now, Doctor Doom coming in could be really cool, but I think for that to be the solution, we'd first perhaps need the Fantastic Four to at least be alluded to. I mean, Doom is a great villain overall, but I just can't see him being introduced first as an Avengers villain. I'd actually love to see the FF and the new Avengers team, whoever that ends up being, team up to take on Doom. That could be a fun first story for the FF, a good way to bring them in, that might also allow us to introduce them without being so focused on, their origin story, which honestly, we've heard a bunch, and I don't even know how you do it in a modern era and make it make sense or make it super interesting. Number 1. Thanos. Another cool villain idea that some folks have is the return of Thanos. While Thanos is seemingly dead and gone, with variants being established as a thing through the Loki series and the TVA, this actually feels kind of more likely at this point. Also, in in the comics we've seen Thanos come back from the dead before, and he's a villain we already know and love, so you just wouldn't have to introduce him to viewers, he could just be there. Plus, he delivers a bonus hit of nostalgia to fans of the old MCU days who miss that sense of familiarity, so it might be a good place for them to go if they want to play on that nostalgia factor. Number 10, Civil War I. Oh boy, the first Civil War caused a great uproar and a good deal of problems in the superhero community. It also made Earth vulnerable to attack as it evidently involved just infighting. When superheroes turn on each other, that's bad. When two main superheroes who are part of the same team turn on each other, that's ridiculous. And that's exactly what happened with Civil War I. While the inciting incident that divided heroes wasn't caused by Iron Man or Captain America, and actually was pretty serious, they both had become leaders of two different approaches for how to best resolve that main issue. Iron Man believed that superhuman beings needed a shorter and tighter leash basically, and should work with the government so they could kind of be overseen. Number 9, Axis. Axis was an event where we saw heroes and villains sort of do kind of like a role reversal. This happened as a result of a spell backfiring, cast by, well, you probably guessed it, none other than Scarlet Witch. Wanda, for being a powerful magic user, has kind of a challenging time with magic. Although, to be fair, she actually wasn't the only caster involved here, although she is the one that we often talk about. Doctor Strange started casting with her, and when he got taken out, Doctor Doom actually helped in his stead. So Doom is also possibly to blame as well, even though Wanda usually takes a lot of the flack for this one. What launched the Axis event was Wanda and Doom attempting to cast this spell on the evolved and supremely powerful version of Red Skull, Red Onslaught, which sort of came about when Magneto was like, I know how to fix this, I'll kill you, and then Red Onslaught happened, so it didn't work out so great. The spell actually succeeded, but kind of backfired in that many other heroes and villains within a certain radius also got hit with the spell unintentionally. Oops. And friends, if you are loving what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, may I recommend that you check out our latest channel, Most Amazing Top 10 Anime. Number 8, Hydra Cap. Hydra Cap is definitely a pretty bad thing that happened for the Avengers in, well, in many regards. One, Hydra Captain America is literally another version of Captain America who for a while we actually thought was the main continuity version for real. So we're not off to a great start with that. Number 2, the Avengers failed to stop Hydra's Supreme Cap from taking over the US. Number 3, some of the Avengers were even manipulated into joining Hydra and Hydra Cap's forces. Some of them were actually like possessed, and some of them were just kind of made to do so. All around, it was just a rough time and not a great look for the Avengers overall. I'm actually surprised there isn't more pushback from the public today as a result of this one. Number 7, Iron Man joins Kang. Yeesh, the crossing. What a weird crossover event. Every time I think I'm over it, we come up with a list topic where I kind of can't help but like return to it. In this event, Iron Man, one of the main Avengers, was revealed to be secretly one of the baddest of the bad, as we learned that Iron Man had actually been working for Kang, or rather Kang's Immortus version, for years. That's right, it turns out that Iron Man is actually a sleeper agent for Kang, or he was. He kind of still is, because he kind of got reconciled into one being, but it's still the old Iron Man. Anyways, as weird as it sounds, this was actually an even worse weirdness than Captain America working for Hydra in my mind. At least that made more sense to me. Iron Man would fight against the Avengers, and when they struggled to defeat him, they called in a past version of himself for him to beat and almost kill. Number 6, Final Fight. When the Earth was threatened by incursions during the events of Time Runs Out, what did the Avengers do? Save the day? Try to stop those incursions? Not exactly. Captain America had once been a member of the Illuminati, the secret group of heroes who banded together to resolve ideally all of Earth's problems without anyone actually even knowing. A group of superpowered intellectual, philosophical, and moral geniuses. At least, that's what they thought. When the incursions were discovered to be a threat, and the majority of the group felt that it was important to consider the possibility that they'd maybe need to destroy other worlds to sort of save themselves from it, Captain America fought vehemently against that idea. As such, his mind was wiped, and he was decidedly ejected from the group. When he regained his memories, rather than use the Avengers to fight against the incursions and find a way to stop them, he actually spent the last bit of time before the multiverse was to end hunting down the Illuminati and in a toe-to-toe battle with Iron Man. Number 5, create the Illuminati. Sometimes it only takes one Avenger to mess up everything for all of us. And that's kind of what happened when Tony Stark, aka Iron Man of the Avengers, decided to bring together the secret superhero group known as the Illuminati. Like I said, this wasn't the combined effort of the Avengers, but when you think about the Avengers now and even before, Tony has been a staple of that team for a very long time. And the Illuminati was really his genius idea. His genius idea. The Illuminati as a group have definitely caused more trouble than they're worth, causing a lot more problems in the cosmos than they've actually solved, playing a key role in the end of the multiverse during Time Runs Out when they couldn't save the world, helping to cause Secret Invasion and World War Hulk as well. So yeah. Number 4, Civil War II. Even worse by far than Civil War I was its follow-up, Civil War II. In this story, we got more infighting, but for less logical reasons. This time, it was Iron Man versus Captain Marvel, because I guess Iron Man just really needs to like duke it out with all the captains. This one is one we can also likely more blame on the behind the scenes, as Marvel was definitely aiming to capitalize on Civil War I's success with this follow-up, but it just didn't work out too well because Civil War II didn't really make a lot of sense for most readers. But in terms of the canon, Carol, I think, was hands down to blame here for just being, well, unreasonably aggressive on the matter that was up for debate. Whether or not to let Inhuman Ulysses, a precog, predict the future and then based on those predictions stop future criminals from committing future crimes before of course they even happen. Yeah, and I say that as a Captain Marvel fan. I'm a big Carol Danvers fan, but this one was pretty one-sided in my mind. Even I am like, I think Carol was wrong and Tony was right. And I don't say that very often. Number 3, Avengers Disassembled. Avengers Disassembled was a story arc where the Avengers essentially imploded. What had really happened was Wanda had learned of the secret being kept from her, that she'd had fake children, which she'd in essence kinda made, who had been taken from her and then wiped from her mind by Agatha Harkness. Now, Wanda didn't like that too much, and in essence turned against Agatha, killing her before turning on her friends and colleagues, causing them to lose control, attack one another, and sicking reality-warped versions basically of like Vision and Dead Avengers on them. Not only did the Avengers hurt one another, but they were made to do so by one of their own, and likely were even somewhat responsible for Wanda getting to a point where she decided to turn on them. So really, who's to blame here? Is it Wanda or is it the Avengers? Or is it kind of everybody? Number 2, ignoring Scarlet Witch. Avengers Disassembled was bad, but likely what was worse was that it kind of could all have been avoided if the rest of the team had simply, I don't know, cared more about their teammate and friend, Wanda. Scarlet Witch had a lot happen to her, and although this is of course superhero comics where every day that you're alive there's a threat of trauma or, you know, of the world ending, or both, there had been many signs that Wanda was not in a good place. Rather than do something about it or, you know, attempt to, I don't know, get her help, mainly the Avengers just went on as though everything was fine. I mean, I know they all each have a lot individually going on, but come on guys, if you have someone with reality warping powers on your team and they are using those powers to create fake children which then disappear without a trace after they also lose their life partner thanks to them basically being taken apart, mind wiped, and rebuilt as a blank slate without emotion, you might think to offer them some help, or, you know, at least check in to see like if they need anything, if they need a hug or a conversation. I'm not blaming them for what Wanda did, but I would at least like to hold them accountable for being pretty much awful friends to her in her time of need. Number 1, no more mutants. Probably one of the worst things that at least one of the Avengers did was to threaten all of the mutant kind's existence with just, you know, a few words. Although admittedly, this wasn't so much Wanda's fault as it was Marvel's, who of course needed some reason to get rid of mutants for a bit because, you know, they'd sold the rights away and they weren't really profiting as much from comics involving mutants at that time, and they simply had too many of them. But reasoning behind the story aside, during House of M, Wanda in the end struck out at all mutants because her father, she felt, was more obsessed with fighting for mutant rights than he was with his actual own flesh and blood family. Although we'd later learn that Scarlet Witch and her brother Quicksilver weren't even really like flesh and blood family. To begin with, part of the reason that Wanda suffered the mental break, which caused House of M and later M Day, had to do with the fact that her friends and Avengers didn't seem to notice or perhaps care that Wanda was suffering as a result of losing her children. And in fact, let us not forget that Janet Van Dyne, the Wasp, of the Avengers, was also the one who even kinda like caused Wanda to remember her kids to begin with. She kinda spilled those beans. So whose fault was M Day really in the end? It was still Wanda's. Wanda was the one that said the words, so it's still her fault. But Janet was there. Which Avenger do you think messes up the most? And why do you think that is? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host Amanda McKnight. I'll see you next time, but until then, you stay nerdy, YouTube.